took his own life in a psychiatric ward, written off by the medical system and society at large as completely insane. But his final testimony tells a completely different story. Before he died, Sumit provided a violently terrifying account of an encounter with a demonic entity on an isolated stretch of highway. The problem is the physical vacuum of evidence left behind. When police finally found Sumit unconscious in the jungle, his friend Rohan was entirely missing, yet their car was sitting on the road in absolutely pristine condition. We are left with two impossible options. Either an untraceable entity pushed a man to suicide without leaving a single footprint, or we are looking at the fatal aftermath of a violent psychological collapse. To understand how his mind could fracture, we have to look at the exact conditions of that road trip. Sumit and Rohan were driving late at night to a remote village. They were severely exhausted from office work, navigating a desolate, unpaved jungle road with zero traffic. This animated diagram illustrates how these specific conditions interact. When you combine severe sleep deprivation, total isolation, and enveloping darkness, the brain's ability to process reality degrades. You push past a critical threshold of vulnerability, priming the mind for severe paranoia and hallucinations. Right at this peak vulnerability, their car engine suddenly overheated. Thick, boiling smoke poured from the hood, trapping them in the dead silence of the jungle. Sumit stepped out of the car. Looking through the dense smoke, he perceived a distinct, shadowy figure standing nearby. That momentary glimpse triggered a massive, uncontrollable fight-or-flight panic response. Panicking, he jumped back in the car and slammed on the gas. He lost control of the vehicle entirely, sending it hurtling out of the dark and violently crashing straight into a massive boulder. The trauma of that sudden impact fractured his perception. From the moment the bumper struck the rock, Sumit's subjective reality detached completely from objective facts. In Sumit's version of events, he woke up from the crash to a nightmare. His friend Rohan had transformed. Rohan's eyes had turned entirely white, and he was growling, exhibiting the physical signs of demonic possession. The ensuing attack was ferocious. Sumit claimed he locked himself in the car, only for Rohan to leap onto the vehicle and begin tearing through the solid metal roof with his bare, elongated nails. Desperate to survive, Sumit grabbed a heavy iron rod from the back seat, bolted from the car, and repeatedly bludgeoned Rohan's skull until the entity stopped moving. Sumit woke up from a coma a full week later in a hospital bed. But when the police arrived to take his statement, they brought an objective report that completely shattered his memory. This is a comparative chart tracking his testimony against the forensic reality, and it shows how the physical evidence directly contradicted his story. First, look at the collision data. Sumit clearly recalled a high-speed crash into a boulder. The police, however, found the car sitting on the road in pristine condition, without a single scratch on the bumper. Then there is the physical altercation. Despite Sumit's vivid memory of torn metal, a shattered skull, and a brutal fight, investigators found zero forensic evidence. The roof was perfectly intact, there was no blood at the scene, and Rohan was simply missing. This complete lack of physical corroboration trapped Sumit. He was caught in a brutal paradox, forced to reconcile the severe trauma lingering in his body with a world that insisted none of it actually happened. The doctors offered a straightforward, logical explanation. They concluded that Sumit had suffered severe head trauma in the jungle, which triggered a massive psychological break and vivid hallucinations. But the medical logic failed to protect him. Lying alone in his bed, Sumit watched as Rohan's demonic silhouette emerged from the deep shadows of his sterile hospital room, whispering that the torment was only just beginning. Society had no protocol for what Sumit was experiencing. Human institutions require physical proof to validate a crime. Because his tormentor left no fingerprints, the legal and medical systems exiled him to an asylum. Whether Sumit was being hunted by a literal demon or suffering through an inescapable hallucination forged by trauma, the subjective terror he felt every single day was exactly the same. The fear was real, regardless of its source. We are left to judge the silence of the evidence. You have to decide, was Sumit fighting a literal, untraceable demon on that highway, or was he simply consumed by the darkest corners of his own mind?